Good morning. Today is Tuesday, September 24th, 2024. At the very end of Moshe's life, which we are reading about in the Torah portion this week, this Shabbos is the double portion of Nitzavim-VaYeilech. And in this double portion, Moshe communicates the last two mitzvos directly from God. Number 612, number 613. Number 612 is a mitzvah that is known as hakel, which means gathering. And the Torah commands that every 7 years there is a Shemitah year, a sabbatical year. We've discussed this many times, especially during the Shemitah year that just passed. And at the end of the Shemitah year, so let's remember, there are lots and lots of details of what the Shemitah is, agricultural laws and laws about lending, but all of that is to serve the purpose that it should be a year of idealistic living, a year of recentering ourselves, of pursuing justice within society, within our lives. And so at the end of the Shemitah year, so it begins and ends on Rosh Hashanah, at the end of the Shemitah year on Sukkos, so it's the Sukkos holiday following the Shemitah year, there is a ceremony, an incredible ceremony called Hakel, where every single Jewish man, woman, and child gathers, and they gather at the Beit HaMikdash, the Holy Temple in Jerusalem, and they are addressed by the king, the Melech, the sovereign. And the king will read from the Torah and remind people of our goals in life. And what this was a global, national renewal ceremony of our covenant with God. The king would remind the people of our history and would call upon the entire Jewish people to reaffirm the terms of our destiny as the people in a covenant with God, in a relationship with God. And even today, we've discussed this before, although it doesn't take place on such a level, it's in a more limited capacity. But there are gatherings all over the world of different groups and different ways of doing it, to gather Jews together, to reconfirm, to renew our commitment to the Torah and to God's commandments. That's mitzvah number 612. And mitzvah number 613, the last mitzvah that God commands through Moshe in the Torah, V'yata kisfu lachem es hashira hazos v'limdes b'nei Yisrael. Now, write down for yourself this Torah. Literally, it's this song, but our sages understand it means that every single person has the obligation to write for themselves their own Torah. Practically speaking, if you are able to write your own Torah scroll, that is the ideal form of this mitzvah. Most people, even learned Jewish people, do not have the qualifications to do that with a quill and ink on parchment. Some people will hire a scribe, a sofer, to write it for them. Okay, next best. Some people cannot afford that either. Most people, I would say. So the way that most people fulfill this mitzvah is to buy Jewish books. So this is a mitzvah to have and to use Jewish books. You should own and use a chumash, a Bible, a siddur, commentaries, books of Jewish law, Jewish thought. You should have a Jewish library. Why specifically these two mitzvos at this particular moment at the very end of Moshe's life? At the very end of the 40 years, just before the Jewish people are about to cross the Jordan into the land of Israel. Why now? Rabbi Jonathan Sacks explains that in these two commands, God is teaching Moshe and Moshe is teaching us what immortality is. But I'm referring to immortality on earth. In other words, of course, every human being is mortal, like everything else in this physical world. And there is no physical organism that lives forever. So we live our life and we pass away, like everything else that is physical in this world. But we are not only physical, we are also spiritual. And in these last two commandments, we are being taught what it means to be part of a spirit in this world that has not only continued but flourished for over 4,000 years and will never cease to exist. The history, the experience, and the destiny of the Jewish people. And God showed Moshe in these two commandments, and Moshe tells us how it is possible for a civilization to never grow old. This is our secret. Our civilization never grows old. It is stronger than ever before because we constantly renew it. And that's what these last two mitzvot in the Torah are about. Renewal. First, collective renewal, and then individual renewal. Hakel is this ceremony, this event, every 7 years. This ensured that the nation as a whole would regularly rededicate itself to its mission, rededicate itself to its values, rededicate itself to its commitment to God and to its understanding of a shared destiny in the unfolding of history. The mitzvah of writing a Torah, of having the Torah and using the Torah for every one of us is the same idea. It is personal renewal. It is God's way of saying to every single Jewish person who has ever lived and who ever will live, it's not enough to say, I received the Torah from my parents. I received the Torah from my ancestors. We received the Torah at Sinai. That's all I need. No, that is not all you need. You have to take the Torah. You have to make it new in each generation. You need your own Torah. And you need to make it yours. You need to apply it to your life. It has to resonate for you. It has to have meaning for you. You need your own Torah. Of course, the words from God are the same. But it must be yours as an individual. And this is the profound truth that, according to Rabbi Sacks, these mitzvahs are teaching us. People who carry their past with them can build the future without fear. But it's hard to do. Renewal is one of the hardest human undertakings. Rabbi Sacks tells the following story. You know, of course, he was very close to the leadership of Great Britain. And he tells the story some years ago that he sat with the man who was about to become Prime Minister of Britain. And in the course of their conversation, he said, this future Prime Minister said, what I pray most is that when we get there, meaning he meant to 10 Downing Street, to becoming Prime Minister, What I pray for most is that I never forget why I wanted to get there. This is similar to the famous words of Harold Macmillan, the British Prime Minister between 1957 and 1963, who, when he was asked what he feared most in politics, he replied, "Events, dear boy, events." Because things happen. And we are blown by passing winds. We're caught up in problems, maybe of our own making, maybe not of our own making. And when we get caught up in these problems, we drift. And when that happens, whether it is to a civilization or to an individual, we get old. We forget who we are and why. And eventually we are overtaken by people that are younger and hungrier and more driven than we are because we're just drifting. The only way to stay young, and this is for an individual as well as for a civilization, is through periodic renewal. Reminding ourselves of where we came from, where are we going and why? To what ideals are we committed? What journey are we called on to continue? Of what story are we a part? And that is the essence of the high holiday season. On Rosh Hashanah, we are bidden to ask ourselves these precise questions and hopefully to answer them in a way that is inspired and illuminated by our personal and communal renewal that takes place as the Jewish year renews again. So I want to share with you now on a very, very practical, mundane level how we can help each other achieve this. Because for most of us, this happens or does not happen in synagogue. The words are there in the prayers, asking us to ask ourselves these questions, to refocus ourselves, to commit ourselves again. The words are there. The messages are there in the synagogue and the rabbi's speeches and classes everywhere all over the world. These are the themes that are discussed, whatever individual details might be mentioned, but these are the underlying themes. But there is one ingredient that every one of us can help provide so that these words and messages are absorbed, because we know that all too often they are not. All too often people come to the synagogue, especially on the high holidays, and they leave cold. They leave unmoved, bored, wondering why they came in the first place. There's one ingredient that can exponentially help so that these messages and words are absorbed. And that is joy. If the mood in the synagogue is joyful, if the experience of coming to the synagogue is joyful, then the messages will be exponentially more likely to be heard and absorbed. So I want to suggest to you, and this comes from an insight from my friend and my colleague, Rabbi Efrem Goldberg, I want to suggest to you that we borrow a lesson from one of the world's most successful creators of joy, Disney World. Disney World creates joy. And they do so in a way that we, in every one of our synagogues, can imitate. And I am suggesting to you and to me that especially over the upcoming holidays, we imitate Disney's strategy of how to do this in our synagogues. Listen to this. Disney World's slogan is the happiest place on earth. Now, Rabbi Goldberg writes, perhaps the greatest part about the magic of Disney is not the souvenirs, the rides, the characters, or even the memories. To me, the most magical part of Disney is simply how happy everyone seems. Now, how does Disney do that? And how can we learn from Disney's culture of happiness? How can we learn how to apply it at ADATH and all of our synagogues? Rabbi Goldberg tells about an experience he had several years ago, as arranged by Yeshiva University, where a group of rabbis, was invited for a behind-the-scenes tour of Disney. And they were shown how the design and the layout, the placement of the vendors, the timing, every detail is so meticulously and brilliantly strategized and arranged. But the most impressive feature was the employee culture, the attitude of Disney's tens of thousands of workers, and the way that they impact on every single one of their guests. In the employee-only area, there are signs with the Disney credo, their motto, for all of their workers. One sign says, I project a positive image and energy. I go above and beyond. Happiness is contagious. And this is such an important thing. There are a lot of things that are contagious in this world. You may notice a yawn is contagious. If one person yawns in a group, it's probable that others will start to yawn. If a person smiles, others around them will start smiling as well. Smiling is contagious. Now, here's the point. Whose responsibility is it to spread the smiles? Whose job is it to maintain the happiness effect that occurs in Disney? Well, there are about 60,000 employees at Disney World in Orlando. All members of the staff, custodial, maintenance, ride operators, the people that wear the Mickey Mouse costumes, every single person is referred to as a cast member. There are no workers. There are no employees. There are only cast members. How many of the 60,000 cast members are responsible for picking up the garbage? The answer is 60,000. How many of the 60,000 are responsible to help someone find directions or return a lost child to their parents? 60,000, every single one of them. How many of the 60,000 employees are required to smile and spread the happiness? Yes, 60,000, every single one of them. At Disney, the cast members know they each have different tasks, but they are taught that they all have the same purpose, spreading happiness. A few weeks ago, we read in the Torah, the Parsha of Shlach, where the Jewish people find they're traveling through the desert. Lo yachlu lishtos mayim mimara kimarim heim. They were not able to drink the water because of the bitterness. And they were thirsty, and they complained to God. I shared with you then the insight of the Kotzker Rebbe, who asked the question, who or what was bitter? Was the water bitter? That's a simple way to read it. The water was bitter, so they couldn't drink it, so they complained. The Kotzker Rebbe says no. The people were bitter. The people were disgruntled. The people were critical. The people were judgmental. The problem wasn't in the water. The problem was the people, who had a predisposition for seeing the bitterness instead of looking for the sweetness. And this is so true in our synagogues, and it is movable. It is possible to tap into Disney's secret and provide a mandate that every single Jew who comes is a member of the caste, not just the clergy, not just the officers, not just the lay leavers. Every single person is a member of the caste. And that means that every single one of us needs to be responsible for smiling and for causing others around us to smile. We all have different jobs. I have a job. The Gabbai has a job. Rabbi Alex has a job. The lay leaders have a job. The ushers have a job. The security guards have a job. We all have different jobs. But we need to see ourselves as all having the same purpose, the same goal. If we try to focus on tasting the sweetness in life, if we make an effort, at the very least while we're in the synagogue on the holidays, to always have a smile, we can convert our synagogues to the happiest places on earth. And then the message we share, the beauty of Jewish tradition, the richness of our history, the infinite reach of our destiny will be absorbed. So I'm asking you, as I'm asking myself, to use Disney's strategy to understand and appreciate the last two mitzvos in the Torah. Renewal to God, to Torah, and to each other. And to do that by creating an atmosphere of joy. My friends, I wish you a wonderful day, and I look forward to seeing you soon in person.